The man who attempted to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh now faces 30 years in prison and identifies as a transgender woman who goes by Sophie. Senate Democrats sink a stopgap bill that would have averted a government shutdown. And is cocaine making a comeback? I'm Georgia Howe with Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley. It's Friday, September 19th, and this is Evening Wire. The man who attempted to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh identifies as a transgender woman and was deeply mentally ill and suicidal. That's according to court documents first obtained by the Daily Wire. In the filings entered today, the DOJ is recommending 30 years in prison for the would-be assassin. Daily Wire Washington editor Tim Rice has the exclusive.
Court documents showed 29-year-old Nicholas Roski, who now goes by Sophie Roski, traveled from California to Kavanaugh's Maryland home in 2022 with a pistol and tactical gear after the leak of the Dobbs abortion draft. He later admitted that he planned to kill at least one justice to, in his words, change the course of the court. Roski pleaded guilty last year to the attempted assassination of a Supreme Court justice. Prosecutors said his actions were meticulously planned and ideologically driven. Attorney General Pam Bondi called it an attack on the entire judicial system. The Justice Department says the sentence sends a clear warning that political violence against federal officials will be punished to the fullest extent of the law. A source familiar with the legal proceedings in the case told the Daily Wire that Roski was using female pronouns online before the attempted murder and now goes by the female name reflected in the defense filings.
A short-term funding bill that would have averted a government shutdown has failed in the Senate. The vote fell short just 2 hours after it cleared the House. The Trump-backed continuing resolution would have kept government spending steady through November 21st while adding $30 million for Capitol Hill security, plus $58 million for judicial and executive protection, a response to rising political violence after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, withheld support while demanding higher healthcare spending. Tensions flared at a Boston vigil for Charlie Kirk. 2 people were arrested as hundreds gathered at a Massachusetts state house to honor him and denounce political violence. Police said 38-year-old Joseph Antoine Castro del Rio was charged with disorderly conduct, while a juvenile was arrested for assault, battery, and carrying a knife. Officers kept protesters and mourners apart with metal barriers as speakers urged peace following Kirk's assassination in Utah.
Late-night host Greg Gutfeld torched the legacy media for trying to paint Jimmy Kimmel as a martyr after his suspension. Despite what left-wing media is trying to claim, Gutfeld said on Fox Thursday, the real victims here are Charlie Kirk and his family.
Even in death, Charlie keeps winning debates. You know, the media, this is what's disgusting. Just look at the reaction. The media is trying to make Jimmy Kimmel into their Charlie Kirk. As if like getting fired is the same as getting fired upon. That's what disgusts me, is how they're trying. This is a blatant effort to get the stink off them. The decades of brainwash that created justification for violence and for murder. Sorry, guys, he's not a victim. The victim is Charlie Kirk. The victims are his family. I don't shed any tears for a lefty millionaire who can still go home and see his kids.
Meanwhile, Daily Wire co-founder Ben Shapiro smacked Kimmel as well. Here he is on Fox yesterday.
I'm sort of surprised that it took 10 years for the public to sound off on how much Jimmy Kimmel sucks. I mean, the reality is that he's been awful at his job for full on a decade. His ratings have been terrible. He has become not a comedian, but as Guy Benson over there has said, the woke pope of late night comedy.
The Trump administration says it's tracked down nearly 25,000 migrant children who crossed the border alone, only to go missing under the Biden administration. Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce has the latest.
Reporters Tom Homan revealed the figure Thursday, citing a watchdog report that said more than 320,000 minors have gone unaccounted for after being released to poorly vetted sponsors. Homan said some children hid with relatives to avoid deportation, but thousands more were discovered in absolutely shocking conditions.
Many were in sex trafficking. Many we found in forced labor. Slavery. I mean, forced to work ungodly hours, not going to school, working ungodly hours, and of course not getting paid, being abused. So, we've rescued thousands of children, and President Trump is committed. I'm committed that we're not going to stop looking for these children until we find every single one of them.
He confirmed 27 of the children have died. Whistleblowers have previously warned that Biden-era officials ignored red flags and allowed children to be placed with strangers using fake documents.
A box cutter-wielding man who was arrested for the rape of a young jogger is a twice-deported illegal immigrant. Daily Wire immigration reporter Jenny Terr has the story.
The Daily Wire has learned that the Guatemalan man accused of violently raping a young jogger in New Haven, Connecticut last month is an illegal immigrant who has already been deported twice. 34-year-old illegal immigrant Ludwig Carias Interiano allegedly tackled the female victim to the ground 30 minutes into her marathon training on August 9th. The man held a box cutter to her throat as he repeatedly raped her before running away. Carias Interiano admitted to investigators that he engaged in sexual activity, but claimed it was consensual. Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told the Daily Wire that the feds deported Carias Interiano twice during President Trump's first term, but he later snuck back in undetected.
A federal vaccine advisory panel now recommends that Americans consult a doctor before getting the COVID jab, but they stop short of recommending prescription requirements. The CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices voted to move to individual-based decision-making. They say benefits are clearest for seniors, the immunocompromised, and pregnant women. Meanwhile, the panel found that younger, healthier people may face a different balance of risks. The guidance marks the first time the CDC has reframed its COVID policy, as officials acknowledged lingering concerns over risk, access, and public trust.
RFK Jr. is taking a scalpel to America's failing organ procurement system. He's promising stronger oversight, accountability, and patient safety reforms. In a historic move yesterday, Kennedy said that Miami's Life Alliance agency will be decertified mid-cycle after botched recoveries cost, quote, a life a day. CMS Chief Dr. Mehmet Oz called organ donation the gift of love, but warned that 28,000 organs are mismatched or thrown out altogether each year, while 100,000 Americans wait. Officials also unveiled $25 million in new support for living donors and new hotlines to address misconduct.
Big MAHA changes are coming to McDonald's. The fast food chain announced this week that it's pouring $200 million into regenerative farm practices. That's the largest McDonald's investment into this kind of agriculture to date. The move has been hailed as a win for the Make America Healthy Again movement, since these practices enhance soil health and make synthetic chemicals and fertilizers far less necessary. McDonald's said the investment shows their, quote, continued commitment to responsible beef sourcing and stewardship of natural resources. For his part, MAHA leader RFK Jr. thanked the fast food giant and cheered the move as a major win. California is facing a new challenge to its pro-transgender sports policies, but Governor Gavin Newsom says responsibility for the issue doesn't fall on him. Daily Wire culture reporter Megan Basham has more.
A Muslim female high school athlete in California says she's been religiously discriminated against by the state's transgender policies, and she's putting part of the blame on Newsom. As Hadil Hazame tells Fox News, when the governor himself calls it unfair, he should be the one acting on it, not girls like her. She also says she shouldn't have to be scared to change in the women's locker room. Hazame, a practicing Muslim, has now joined a lawsuit with her family against the Jurupa Unified School District, the California Interscholastic Federation, and California Department of Education. Newsom's office has responded by saying that neither the entity that governs high school sports nor the Department of Education falls under the governor's authority.
The president of Texas A&M University resigned yesterday in the wake of a viral video in which a professor kicked a student out of class for questioning her teaching of gender ideology. The video and ensuing criticism online led to the firing of the professor, the removal of a department head and dean, and a promise from the DOJ to investigate. In a statement yesterday, University Chancellor Glenn Heger said, quote, now is the right moment to make a change and to position Texas A&M for continued excellence in the years ahead.
Cocaine is unfortunately back in style for Americans. As the Trump administration cracks down on fentanyl traffic, another drug is on the rise, cocaine. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Jalisco New Generation cartel has taken advantage of the focus on fentanyl to expand demand for its own product. In the process, Jalisco has overtaken the notorious Sinaloa cartel to become Mexico's top drug gang. According to new data, cocaine use in the western U.S. has surged 154% since 2019, while it's jumped 19% in the east.
One of the nation's most haunting manhunts may have finally come to a close. Authorities in Washington state say human remains found Thursday night near Leavenworth are believed to be those of Travis Decker. the Army veteran accused of suffocating his 3 young daughters before vanishing into the wilderness months ago. Sheriff's deputies say the remains were found on Grindstone Mountain, not far from where the girls' bodies were discovered in June. Clothing and personal items at the scene matched what Decker was last seen wearing. DNA testing will confirm the identity. And a museum honoring the American dream opens tomorrow, right around the corner from the White House. The Milken Center for Advancing the American Dream features interactive exhibits that promote the success stories of Americans. Museum founder Michael Milken described the mission in a press release, saying, quote, "The American dream is the ideal that any person, regardless of background or where they start, should have the opportunity to pursue a life of meaning and fulfillment." The center's leadership hopes to eventually host naturalization ceremonies for new U.S. citizens at the museum.
All right, those are your drive home updates. To learn more about these stories, go to dailywire.com. And in case you missed it this morning, we covered some major stories, including the fallout from the Jimmy Kimmel suspension, exclusives on a radical left group linked to a string of violent attacks, and the Trump administration's deportation ramp up. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a weekend edition of Morning Wire.